welcome back to the AOE4 action. This is going to be a fun one because handling the Abbasid dynasty actually was one of the better players when it first came out, when AOE4 arrived. Give you anxiety, a bit of a master of this civ in the early days, it felt like, is going to be whipping out the old and tried, but trying the new across the way. The gap between them in Golden Pit, not too big, but the gap in styles can be indeed. It is going to be BeastyQT on the Ayyubids, who apparently has had a very interesting December here. Fix the forking crashes already. He seems to be having a bit of a bad time at the moment. Hopefully, this is not going to be one of those games where it's a bad experience because of a crash. Hopefully, this is just going to be a fun one back and forth. First things first, we're going to open up and have a look and see what is the scouting pattern. And 1 second, apologies, folks. It's because I was playing games when we last streamed. If you didn't catch that, if you want to be a part of that, make sure you do check out the live stream. So there we go. We've got the bindings, right? And ooh. Oh, that's kind of... Actually, that's not really... that should have been tough, but that wasn't. Wow. Are you kidding me? Did he not get additional sheep of that long run? Oh, that's pain. So, Give You Anxiety actually beat Beastie to the corner, but Beastie seemed to get just as much out of that area for half the lap distance, it felt like. But love this from GUA. Notice what he's doing straight away with his scouting pan. He shifts across to the opposite side of the map, knowing he has cut-off potential now to run right around the back on the right side here. So Beastie not going to get much of the map in comparison to GUA. Just a marvelous read coming out from the NA Prodigy. But this is an interesting one, actually, because this matchup doesn't necessarily require sheep to function, but the beauty is within the fact that neither of them require sheep, it actually matters a lot. It's similar when you see Abbasid versus Abbasid, right? Person getting 2/3 of the sheep on the map is an edge because it means they don't have to play out into risky territories quickly. And the interesting part, actually, that kind of skewers this matchup in particular, though, is that old Abbasids are kind of fixed to this extra 100 on each of these berries, right? So you go 350 on each. Cool thing about the Ayyubids, and Beastie's going for it straight away, playing into the eco-wing growth allows you to extend the lifeline of each of these berry patches, which means for him, they're not going to exhaust as quickly. And I love what we're seeing here. This is the great micro I was looking to see out the top players. A lot of people shied away from the berries to open up with because they didn't want to exhaust them before they had growth online. But notice what Beastie is doing here. He understands if you want to get the most out of this civ, a civ that is based on very tight timings, very finite hits, you need to make sure you're optimal. And being optimal means going out to the berries regardless and just making sure that you micro off of the low berry patch before you exhaust it. Because as long as you do that, every single berry patch that still exists when this kicks in is going to get that extra 50 food, while everyone afterwards as well. So really critical that you manage to just shift these. You see he's got 54 here, 51 here. Just very good on the micro. And the cool thing is you're not really losing any efficiency if you think about it, because you eventually have to end up out here anyway. You could argue the difference of having wall barrier, but considering it hasn't even started to be pumped yet, it's going to be a pretty moot difference in this circumstance. So let's check out how things are playing out on the other side. Looks like we're going to get military wing coming out from GUA. Sheep-wise, actually, Beastie done better. That's the really surprising part here. Despite the fact he was kind of constricted to a small part of the map, but that's because he's still going. He's still lapping. Meanwhile, GUA went to a similar area. He already dropped off his sheep, I think, twice, if I'm not mistaken, while Beastie only had to do it once when he looped back on himself. So looks like overall, it might just be about even Stevens, just 2 sheep in it. But once again, because you've got the Ayyubids adding more berries onto this limited food source, it spells better future for them. Where this gets a little bit more muddied is as we go further down the road and you're looking towards Eco Wing potentially coming out. That's when the Abbasids can start to get the long-term advantage on food, because they will be able to transition to farms cheaper. On top of that, someone else that you always have to be conscious of between these two civs is that the gathering speed of the Abbasids is going to be slightly superior, as the Golden Age 1 gives 15% increased gathering rate. Meanwhile, for the Ayyubids, it's actually a fixed 10%. And remember, when you get to the later game, the Abbasids one scales up another 5%. The Ayyubids one remains frozen in place. So just a little important detail there. But initial aggro is going to be coming out as the Abbasids have spawned their military wing units. And I'm wondering, was he concerned about this potentially being a TC rush? I doubt it. I think he knows it's going to be a fast castle build. So his number one goal, his priority right now, is to push the Ayyubid player off of the food so that he has to resort to the sheep and exhaust them quicker. So good movings there from GUA. And GUA behind this is going to go for that secondary TC. This is a pretty standard build at this point, right? Melee wing into second TC. Cool thing as well is the Ayyubid player can match it, and it's going to cost the same, right? Because this is an eco wing play from the Abbasids. I don't think that's exactly what Beasty's going for here, though. It looks like the stone drop-off is just intended for the arrow slit emplacement with the 50 stone. And that's going to allow him to guard his gold long enough not only to get Castle Age, but also to then get Lancers afterwards. So this is a pretty cut and dry build for Ayyubids at the moment. It's fair to say that it's either Eco Wing or Military Wing into Culture Wing advancement is the go-to meta right now. This isn't shifting too much, and I don't see it evolving further anytime too soon. The issue is that advancement is just way too freaking good, taking off 500 cost as well as 40% time. In conjunction with the fact that because of the nerfs they made about a month ago, where they increased the tech time from 1 minute and 45 seconds to 2 minutes, all they essentially done is escalated the value of advancement more than it was before, right? Because the starting number is bigger, which means time taken off as a percentage is higher. So really hope they do look to tweak advancement, maybe even just full out rework it, and then also drop the tech timings down to 1 minute 45 again. I think those are reasonable. There was a little bit of sanity there, whereas right now, they've essentially handcuffed this Civ, I'd say for the Civ, for the foreseeable future, to always play around advancement at some phase. So GUA, trying to be a nuisance. Looks like a small wall from the backside from BC is going to minimize the wraparound potential there. And we are going to be seeing him go into Bazaar. So, well, that is Bazaar. I was not expecting that. An interesting choice out of Beastie here, actually. But I imagine this is because he wants to set tempo aggro. Now, the reason why Bazaar is really interesting here is, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the villager choice they removed, which means your only eco benefit, clear eco benefit, is going to be trade. This is not exactly what I call a great map for trade, considering your only options are the enemy marketplace, or I guess in this case, the enemy House of Wisdom, but that's unlikely to ever occur. So this seems to be about the aggro play. Cool thing with Beastie doing this is you have to remember, compared to the feudal version, you get a lot more Bedouin swordsmen, a lot more Bedouin skirmishers. So if you luck out on those points and you pump them hard, you can flood the mid-map. And I think that might be his goal here. Especially considering he knows that GA would have went for the second TC, and is probably going to try to catch up in the Castle Age immediately afterwards, which would put Blue at a very big disadvantage here. Barra text come through. Let's just see him getting pumped out as the Ayyubids have shifted a grand total of 18 villages across onto the gold. Also remember, the reason why you're seeing the Ayyubids still ahead here is Beastie. He went Growth Wing, which meant that he spawned 3 villages. It wasn't just the extra berries on the berry bushes he got. He also got additional villages. 3 villages if you do it in feudal. I think it's 8 or 6, sorry, in castle, and I think it's 10, if I'm not mistaken, in Imperial Age. Now GA has at least set up on the deer, so he has a little bit of longevity. Also has the berries really close by, so this is a pretty cozy position for him to find himself in. But it could get very uncomfortable if we are going to see skirmisher points here, and we'll find out in just 10 seconds. An interesting choice as well by Beastie. I mean, I don't remember the last time I saw someone go with this with the Ayyubids. It's ever since the nerfs to this specific landmark choice, it fell off the side of a cliff. Let's see what Beastie can do. Spawn comes in. Oh, come on. No. No way. Did he legit just get only resources? Okay, Beastie, what's it going to be? You hungry? You need more fiber in your diet? Or do you just want to rock this world? I mean, you could go for a second TC now very quickly, but I imagine his biggest priority is going to be, yep, the dervishes. This is one really powerful play with the Ayyubids right now. It's another detail in why the Castle Age rush is so strong. It's not just about these camel lancers that everyone's thinking it is. It's actually more about this building here and what they build. The cambulances that the Ayyubids get access to are the joint fastest unit in the game for collecting relics, alongside the Rus. And if you guys remember, for a very long time, the Rus meta was Castle Age rush, Abbey of Trinity, grab those relics, and do the dance because they can't do anything about it. Similar logic here. Culture Wing is on the way. GA, just 45 seconds out. You can see he is pumping the racks, archery range, and the stables, so getting a little bit of variety in his life here. A lot of resources to work with once he arrives there. That's always the benefit of playing the Abbasids or Ayyubids, right? Is by the time you tech up, you have a lot to spend. Villagers in a bit of trouble here, though. Beastie slowing the pull away, does lose 1. Unfortunately, that really shouldn't be happening. The shuffle formation, he could have lost a second there. It seems like GA backs away, realizing the arrow fire was getting a bit threatening. We'll just Except the ability to idle his opponent is more valuable here. And the Dervishes are coming out. Notice it is a double Moss play out of Beastie here. Needs to be a little bit careful, though. Cool thing about these Dervishes, you can see they can actually outrun. That's the thing, 1.62 movement speed. Even with a charge there, the Spearman just can't gap close. And by the time you reach the relic, you can easily just try to wall load to push them back. And even if he does get sniped on the return, he's going to get the relic close to his base. So GUA, now up in Castle Age. Instantly into the Preservation of Knowledge, because he did actually go for the Culture Wing. Now, one problem that I always do have with Preservation of Knowledge that can screw you over depending on your timings is that realistically you are delaying upgrades to get this first, right? Because you don't get like a rebate on all the upgrades you've done. It's only ones afterwards. So in some builds, that's really damaging if you hit the Castle Age and you need the unlock straight away. This game is fine for it though, because GUA doesn't have a very big army he has to fight. If this was a game where both of them played a prolonged feudal, I think that's where Culture Wings tends to be a little bit less impressive, because you just have to wait that additional time before you're able to utilize your army in a fight, right? Which can give your opponent an edge. But luckily with this build, fits perfectly in for GUA, means he can get everything cheaper because he's still got the boot camp as well as the composite bows to go into. For the time being, we're going to be going into lances. Interesting choice as well to prioritize a decent chunk of cavalry here, considering that you are up against a camel civ. I mean, they already have 5 camels out via the dervishes, right? Yeah, you heard that correctly, folks. He already has 5 camels. And he's already got the other 3 relics on the way home. Is he genuinely going to snake these? He is. Oh, wow. And GUA is looking in all the wrong places. Oh, dude, that's got to hurt so much. There's no way, with this moves out of GUA, that Beastie should be getting all 5 relics. Maybe like 3, possibly 4. But 5 is insane here. And look at what he's doing with it, folks. He still hasn't spent the trade wing points, because screw it, there's nothing he really wanted. He's going straight up. And I believe we are going to be looking at, probably in this type of game, I can see it being a military wing. Double wall low. He gets out just in time. Calm as a cucumber. Is it cool? Cool as a cucumber. Don't ask me about my sayings. Dervish in the meantime securing the sacred sites as well. But Beastie, this has to be military wing reinforcement. This reeks of military wing reinforcement. I mean, I don't think you prioritize Master Smiths here. I've been over it a million times by now. I think Master Smiths has no logical play in Imperial Age, in my humble opinion. Because what you're doing is you're spending 3.6k to save 2k. And sure, you're getting the researchers quicker, but at that stage in the game, usually you're up at least the tier 2 on your structures, which gives 50% research speed, right? So double blacksmith just does what you need. I think Master Smiths, this is the weird thing, like I've seen some plays now with Master Smith where I'm convinced it works really well in Feudal Age. Maybe occasionally in Castle Age, but mainly in Feudal Age. But I'll never, ever understand someone clicking this other than a misclick for Imperial. This choice makes a lot more sense, though. The military wing reinforcements, 7 Desert Raiders every 2 minutes now. Pretty helpful when you're finding yourself oppressed like this. And the Bedouin Swordsmen are also incredibly helpful. Beastie starts to spawn them. And keep in mind, once that tech up completes, these boys do get upgraded further. They've already been juiced up once. 168 health on them right now. I think they got up to about, I think it's 196 or 212. I forget which. Ram, in the meantime, has at least got rid of the outpost, but the gold's already been exhausted. Beastie is just going on passive gold right now. Bedouin Swordsmen, got to be careful because they do take extra damage from the archers, but it looks like those archers are hitting into the camels instead. Double outpost is going to protect, and that's going to force GUA away. Tech up. I mean, he has to know by now, right? There's no way he's not aware that this is going to be a fast imp build by the fact that there's still not a standing army for Beastie. It's just been one pool of Bedouins, and that is literally it. So I'm sure he's fully aware. The interesting thing is that Beastie is doing this in a very optimal way in that you only have 8,000 gold safely near your base to utilize these type of plays. He's already got up to Imperial Age before exhausting the second. This is a really good sign for Beastie. That's going to need to be. GUA right now with 4 times the military force and a growing eco advantage. Ram, in the meantime, moving on the mosque. Still not being answered, so it looks like that is going to be going down soon. Relics are going to be pulled out of this, though. However, there's no second mosque yet. That is on the way from Beastie on the west side here. Fortified outposts are upgraded, but raids are coming in. Lance is looking to cut this off, but the upgrade comes in, and there it is. Veteran Desert Raiders on the go. The triple relic wall plays at his disposal. GUA is going to have no choice but to move away from this. There's one. Notice that he's rationing these right now, not throwing them all at once. That's going to give him access now to the ram, which should allow him to clear this up and get rid of any threat to his defenses. Second wall low comes in. GUA has to back away again. These Raiders, though, they're not attacking the ram, which kind of feels like maybe a misread here. He's just trying to get the hits in instead, it seems. Triggers one more wall low. Flash comes in. GUA a little bit late on the pull away there. Tempting fate, just about gets out of range. That's all the wall lows expended. I mean, there are more, right? He could go get the extras, but the problem is right now the spear's behind him, so that seems unlikely here. Just going to be forced back for the time being. Crossbows do at least stay alive, but the Bedouin swordsmen are down. Outposts continue to be pressured, and more buildings are needed behind this. I think BC may have overestimated the power of this timing here, or maybe not given enough respect to GUA, because Blue is pushing it. Military force down to just 8, and it's only crossbowmen coming out up against mass spears and some calves. So not the best of exchanges to open up for Beastie. And keep in mind, he may be an Imperial, but for all intents and purposes, he's not Imperial. No upgrade to elite status for the crossbows. He's only really got these Desert Raiders coming out. There's the big juju for him in another 30 seconds, but even they have not been upgraded to elite status yet. And considering the lack of gold access now, and only passive gold to afford the crossbows, it seems unlikely we're going to be seeing much in the way of tech up soon. Great read there coming out from GUA, actually. The timing was really on point. That guy, he had me on the edge of my seat. When he went in for that dive on the wall, he pulled away at the very last second. In fact, it even looked like a few of his troops still got clipped inside the wall radius. Just a great read by the NA Pro. And now just look at these numbers surging here. 46 to 85 on the eco. Now, it is 5 relics, but really there's only so much 5 relics can do for you in this circumstance. If you're a Beastie, you need to start finding a way out to do some pressure, but right now, there is no getting out of the base. There's only holding on barely at that. There's another raid is now coming in. Lancers and Gulam going to move onto the eco line. Final 1 or 2 villager picks. The main army is shuffling across. Mangonel's also here, so crossbows are going to be a bit threatened. Decent shot out. Love the little shift in the north side there, just to get his army behind the base. Doesn't want to be anywhere near this right now. Behind this, GUA, he has not chosen to tech up. It is still a double down on military, but with this type of eco lead, that will slowly escalate. And also, the eco power of these relics is shrinking. So another mosque just went down. They build another one up behind this. I mean, he's missing... So he's got 3 relics in this one, right? Yeah, so only getting 160 gold trickle a minute here. And folks, that's all he's got right now. So this is a very dangerous game right here for Beastie. Now, he could try to buy, but that only works for buying someone that is not gold, remember. So a little bit screwed by this trade wing play on this map. Wall's going up. He's going to keep him alive for the time being. That's the one upside right now, is because Beastie's defending. He realistically, with this kind of format, only needs range units, which means that he can trade well with GUA. However, with a military difference between them still, he has to trade well. Low coming out. GUA is going to pull back just in time. Relic's still not being picked up, though. Just seems he's been cut off from his goodies. Castle is on the way, however. Ayyubids, you better get this up as well. It looks like GUA moved his army a bit too far out of location because they broke through the wall. I think this might have been a misread, actually. I'm a little bit surprised that GUA went for the dive here when there's nothing really for him to deny. I mean, the food might seem important, but considering that this is a trade wing play, it's really all about the gold for Beastie here. Gold that he's once again going to have in more than one way, as it looks like the mosque relics are being recovered. Mining camp coming up now. And what has he got the points left on? What can he spend it on? I think he's spent all the points so far. But we should be getting more coming in 90 seconds here. This also gives him ability to get into siege, which we're now seeing coming out. The Mango to accompany the Springwood here. This is really important considering that GUA is massing archers at this stage. Could be his undoing. So he needs to make sure he reads this ahead of time and gets into the Springwoods. For the time being, he's going to be going in for the Rams. Rams up against the Ayyubids. Makes a lot of sense because you don't want to be diving to torch down these buildings. They do have the fire armor. But really, it must be about the houses here, I think, for GUA. There's a lot of houses in one area, 6 in fact. So if he can start taking those away, BC's going to run into trouble really quickly. His whole economy is safe to the left side of this right now. If you can get a little wall up behind this, it's going to be nicely insulated due to the keep, right? But does have to be careful. A lot of resources he does want are on the right side here still. The stone, the food. Those are going to become limiting factors soon for him, considering that before he was spamming out crossbows, and I mean now he's stopped entirely. In fact, Beastie, he's gone for a raid. Oh, wow. He actually goes out with the veteran Desert Raiders here, so it's going to snipe off the reinforcements, take out a few villages as well. Needs to be careful, though. These things are glass cannons. They only have one ranged armor, 145 health. And they'll at least fare well in the melee clash, but if the spearmen show up, they're going to die fast. So, in the meantime, instead of trying to address that fully, you do see Jue trying to get his own licks in here with the cavalry. Not going to be as effective as the only horsemen. Rams are shuffling in, though. 2 more have been built in addition to the first. And this is getting a bit messy the way this is splitting up. I mean, Beastie, because the eco of Jue is so big, he's starting to find hits. Goes in the back. But this dive is difficult, folks. I mean, this is the problem, right? Like, you do not have ranged armor, so finding yourself in range of any TC is already a negative for you here, even when you're elited up like this. Also, the read by Jue just to get textiles, a brilliant one here. Minimizes the losses, where another player who would have been a bit more greedy would have probably already lost double the eco. Speaking of losing eco, horsemen are still on the villages, the pink villages that is. The main fight is being forced underneath the castle here. Badoon skirmishes have been pulled, but problem here is they just have nowhere to run. And the Rams hitting onto the castle. It looks like Beastie, he's not going to be able to keep this alive, is he? Castle likely to go down. Raid is still hitting well on the farmlands, but there's no denying that Jue can afford this in abundances that Beastie simply cannot right now. 49 to 97 eco. Castle down. And Beastie now, once again, without access to gold. In fact, he won't even get the full drop-off of this final load here. Several villages going down in the process. A messy engagement on both sides. Now, some people might wonder, why the hell did Beastie go for that flank attack, knowing what he'd invite? I don't think he had a choice there. I genuinely think if he didn't make that choice to go for the counter trade, this would have looked even worse because the pressure was still going to mount here, and those Desert Raiders weren't going to make much of a difference against what is mainly an army of archers and spearmen at this phase. So don't blame him for trying to get that trade, but there's no denying he came out worse for it. Jue. The berries. What is going on here? It is a race for food, folks. 10 villagers versus 10 villagers. The best part is because Beastie built his mill, rather. He upgraded the berries, and now he's going to be forced away. Oh, no. This feels bad. It's bad enough you lose the food. It's even worse you gave Jue another 300 food on top of it. I mean, not that he really needs all these farms at home, but he'll happily tip the hat and take anything he can get. Raids on the backside still. This game, I mean, this game looks borderline over already, right? Like, I'm trying to think, what's the way that Beastie gets back into this? Because as it stands, he's now 64 eco behind. Now, he does have 5 relics, sure. That is going to make up about 10 villages difference here. That's still a double eco difference. Look at the military as well. Like, this is... I'm wondering what Beastie's thought process is. We have to remember this is a player that has been on record saying time and time again, if he thinks there's a chance, like some sort of anime art character, if he believes there is a sliver of opportunity to return to a game, he will see it through. And he has at least now secured a castle in the center on the gold. And as we know, for both these civs, late game is going to be about that gold control. Quite often, Golden Pit does come down to this. The interesting part to me is Jue has gone for a comp that doesn't really care about gold. The impressive part, even more still, is the fact that Jue has continued to play this Castle versus Imperial, and he's still looking incredibly convincing. And that's not easy to do, folks. Usually, Castle versus Imperial, you have about 5 to 8 minutes to do enough damage. Fair to say that Jue has. Now he's in a cozy position where he's popped up. He should be looking to get that last bit of gold, and then he should be triggering the tech up. And I imagine we are going to be looking at an eco-wing play here, because improved processing in this late game is going to make all the difference between the OG Civ and its variant. Rams, in the meantime, are going to be thrown away on the castle. They won't be able to dent that. It looks like the army was out of position for that engagement. Beastie has at least got one elite unit, right? He got the elite raiders a little while back. The interesting part still is his crossbows have yet to be upgraded. Instead, it looks like he's prioritizing getting the cannon emplacement on the keep. But I imagine the crossbows are the next thing to get upgraded, unless he wants a full transition, which could make a lot of sense here. I mean, once you have gold access, if you fix your food, you could think about hand cannoneers. But the problem right now is Beastie does not have enough food. Instead, he's going to spend more food. It's going to be a second TC coming out from the Ayyubids. Double Mango is at least going to scare Jue off here. Does not want to dive past the keep. Understands the body blocks could kill him here. So instead, bides his time. We'll call off these raids in the Desert Raiders, and we are now just 1 minute and 5 seconds away from Eco Wing. and very big edge here, right? I said for the improved processing, but realistically, it's the agriculture more than anything else here that is going to blow your mind. Keep in mind that GUA has been farm booming like crazy behind this. He has 58 farms. He's about to get another 15% increased gathering rate, and then he's going to have the eco upgrade on top of that. So this is why the Abbasids tend to stay on top of everyone else in the hyper late game, and they're definitely going to be miles ahead of the Ayyubids when it comes to that food economy. Push in now. No connection here, so the firearm is quite limited for the castle. And it looks like it's going to be a retreat. Unfortunate timing as well. Beastie, he barely got enough gold together to get another upgrade. So heavily handcuffed, heavily limited. And, well, he does still at least have those 5 relics, but 5 relics, once again, compared to what GUA can take with his eco lead, is nothing. GUA right now is throwing away villagers like it's nothing. Looks like there was an attempt to raid on the flank here. GUA will at least get the walls up. It's going to cost him several villages, but whoop-de freaking doodah. When you've got a trip up like this, you don't care. Jesus, he's still picking villages on the other side as well. So Beastie, it feels like every time he gets a trade, it goes doubly bad for him. And finally, Beastie's able to find a freebie on the flank here. Villagers out on the berries are at least going to be punished, but GUA still 102 eco to the 36 of Beastie. Now, if Beastie can drag this game late enough, if we can make that full recovery, those relics can be a difference maker, but it feels a bit difficult to recover when this is happening. Elite upgrades. Look at them all being queued up right now. The dive comes in. GUA understanding that this is his time to shine. House is being burnt to make sure that BC can't reboot, and a shift across now into the berries again. And this is getting scary, folks. You've got about 20 seconds to take a fight before it gets worse. BC does not have the mass to do that. Mangoes are at least going to try to shuffle out and threaten a little here. The breakthrough commences. GUA now ready to ride in. He's got horsemen weighing on the flank as well. There are a few camels riding around the back of Blue's base, but not enough for him to worry. Instead, he dives into the eco, finds more berry workers here, and we now shift past looking for more. Beastie, however, says, I don't have enough eco for you to hunt like that. There's barely anything left. He's still, instead, he's got a quarter of his economy halfway across the map gathering stone right now. That's how desperate Beastie is. Raid coming in the flanks. Going to find another little pocket economy here of GUAs. Meanwhile, the dive comes in with the horsemen. The elite horsemen at that, looking for the villages. Now, eco lead is slightly shrinking for GUA, but this is still a crawl up a mountain. And unless you are a Skyrim horse, that is never easy. It is looking easy for GUA. Look at the stone gathering right now. I mean, this is probably going to be a keep drop right slap bang in the center just to deny all equity. At which point, you're playing trade wing with no trade wing benefits. You're playing into crossbows without an access point for mass gold to scale crossbows. And you always feel like you need a 1 or 2 more mangoes for the amount of troops that GUA has. So fair to say, I'm seeming like a bit of a negative Nelly, but it really is that hard of a game. This would be a miracle for Beastie to pull back, but step by step it comes, right? Infantry support on the way. That's going to just boost the armor on the Desert Raiders. It's pretty effective at this stage in the game, actually, especially when your opponent is still half archer comp, because it means that these archers are going to be losing, with the ranged armor increases, actually, they're going to be losing 2/3 of their damage. Even with composite bows to compensate a bit, that's still a heavy loss. So smart read there by Beastie. And it should be... Has it not kicked in yet? There we go. A little bit of a delay there. Look at the armor on these. I think there is something to be said about the camel support. They do need to change this icon, by the way, because that one's wrong. The idea of camel support with the Ayyubids in late game with Desert Raiders is pretty nutty when you think about it. 10 melee armor. And by the way, that's without any melee armor upgrades. You can make that number even higher. Mangoes. Gonna get a decent shot here. Horseman get baited in. Beastie finally ready to fight, and for good reason. Look at the military difference. This is the closest it's been for quite some time. Imagineeks realizing they're a little bit too close there. GUA starts to prioritize it down. Should be able to get it out of range. Meanwhile, another little raid attempt comes in from Beastie, but not able to find enough damage this time. Remember, Beastie, he is 2 TC, and he has been for a few minutes now, so the fact that it's still locked at 40 eco shows you how relentless GUA has been with his pressure. Another clash comes in. A bloody good hit there as well. Needs to be every time, because I'm just looking at the food numbers, and that's the scary part for me. I mean, gold looks really bad for GUA, but remember, he has access. The only reason he hasn't got much gold right now is he keeps spending it all. Biology, and also in the melee tech level 3 on the way. Looks like that one camel did get in. Hasn't been reacted to yet. I think GUA's probably got bigger concerns on the horizon here. In fact, GUA now coming for a pinch. Beasty playing a very dangerous game with his position here. Notice he's playing up fairly blind. He does not know what's wrapping behind him. More archers are moving in to be annoying. Castle is up in the base. The Beasty's at least insulated there. But this move, this could cost him dearly. It's either going to win the game or be the beginning of the loss of the game here because he does not have the resources to replace what would be lost here. Let's see how GUA wants to react. Army is shuffling. Knights now raiding into the back on the farmlands. A dive comes in on the front farms of GUA. Villagers are going to be lost. Camel raider count is getting fairly high at this stage, it's fair to say, up to 17. Knights chased away in the meantime by the spears. Main army is going to keep moving deeper, but it starts to feel a little bit like a trap. GUA circling like a shark. Just waiting for the second line so he can pounce, right? So if you're Beasty, you need damage, you need it fast. There he goes, in, diving towards the villagers. Start to snipe out a few here. The TC makes it a little bit more problematic because there's enough here to protect them all. Instead, there's going to be a palisade gate and a retreat out the backside here. TC is distracting long enough. This is going to allow GUA to start moving in position. He's giving a lot of respect. Allowing this to go down, not trying to dive in a rush. Instead, it seems like GUA wants to wait for Beasty to come a bit closer. Maybe look for some desirable terrain to fight on. It has that feeling of it, right? Like he doesn't want to go into his own choke points because they could kill him. Instead, GUA, I think there's a bit too much hesitation coming out here, right? Like, his army is not as high of a quality, right? Because he hasn't got the hand cannoneers scaled up. But realistically, at this stage, you do have what it takes to take this down. I think this is also a case of maybe forgetting that you're up against an opponent who doesn't have gold. So you could even just snipe out these Manjaniques with things like your hand cannoneers because there are there's no extra siege armor coming in here, right? Like, if you think about gold access, he has got a little bit left, 921, but I don't feel like that's the thing that Beasty would invest what limited gold he has in, right? He'd be more interested in getting into, say, additional crossbows or maybe making a heavier siege transition because it looks like Beasty is going to try to go for a ram. And by a ram, I mean a ram spam because we are 32 minutes in the game, so going for a ram would be quite the tiny investment. This is pretty ballsy, actually. Considering your opponent has a lot of spears and a lot of horsemen, this could backfire quickly. Army marching forward in the choke point. Clash coming out. Finally, it's what he's been waiting for. The Culverin hits the field. Manjaniques are being sniped down. Now with them gone, it looks like Beast is going to be forced to retreat. The best thing you can do is minimize casualties. Pull off the camels and get the hell out because they are your value unit right now. Wait, does he not realize there's a wall? Oh, he is so lucky right now. The wall's coming in. It's going to be a little bit too late from GUA. If GUA had realized and just peeled north straight away, he would have cut these boys off and they'd just be gone. Instead, so going to be a few camels falling. The rest are going to get away. Meanwhile, in the center, a second wave has mass. Beasty ready to try and push in here, but still needs to get that siege ahead of him. Ram's finally shuffling out. But GUA, he should see this. He should now have enough time to react to this. Dangerous games being played out in this flank by GUA, just trying to access more wood. But second castle coming in behind this. A keep on the way also from Beasty. This is about to turn into a messy fight. 3 castles on one screen, and they don't all belong to one player. What the hell am I looking at right now? Clash coming in. Castle still stands for the time being. This dive is hurting a lot. The Desert Raiders, even the 6 armor, they feel the sting of the 14 damage. Cancel of the keep here. GUA decides to back away, realizing he can't hold the area. Step 1 to a recovery arc complete. I say that, I think we're 3 steps in at this stage. Beasty up to 70 eco now. They're neck and neck, but the military is the difference, and GUA is flexing it all. The entire battalion turns up, and I can't help but feel that Beasty's going to have to cut and run. He just got this keep online. He only just got this up. The only upside, this is mainly a ranged army. There's nothing to siege this castle down. The army, however, is fair game. GUA with the dive past, and now we'll turn around with a burn. And I think he might have enough here. A cannon might come in, but it's not going to feel worth it. Villagers, in the meantime, pulled to deal with the Rams. And GUA, despite the fact he is now behind in economy, he has a 2.5 to 1 military advantage and scaling. Not only that, folks, he has a lot of hand cannoneers. Hand cannoneers that are the absolute counter unit to these camel archers. These Desert Raiders, rather. 210 health, 6 ranged armor. Isn't going to count for much when you're being hit this hard. These hand cannoneers that should, theoretically, at this stage, have... Yeah, they've got the gunpowder. 42 damage. Not to mention, they've got the armor benefiting them as well. That's going to be 5 ranged armor. So if you try to fire range, you're doing practically no damage. Remember, these Desert Raiders, they only hit for a mere 16 in bow form at this phase of the game. Dive comes in, GUA. He smells blood in the water like a shark. Castle is at least here to try and protect the main base of Beasty, but I'm more worried about the flanks, openings on the right and left that could be exploited here. For the time being, he camps himself on the racks. Beasty, he's trying to go for the counter raids, but if you're GUA at this stage in the game, I don't think you care as much. You'll send a few troops maybe, but your main focus is on blunting the base. Because you have to understand that Beasty never made that type of farm transition you did. You've always had the food advantage. So now, it's time to push it. Well, Vanguard is going to be cleared up here. Still a 3-1 military advantage for GUA being maintained. Rax is also being burnt down. It's becoming a limiting factor. Lots of wood being gathered on the backside, but he still needs to build up additional infrastructure. You can see the difference here, folks. 131 pop to 200. GUA with so much pop to flex. He's taken multiple fights. He finds the eco on the backside here, starting to snipe those out. Looks like the last of the Raiders is going to be cleared up in GUA's own base. Now you can choose to reboom on the eco or just fully commit with the dive. I think we are just going to get a committed dive here. Army distract on this side means that he's going to lose infrastructure on the left. Now, there's no way you're going to try to burn him out of this game on the House of Wisdom straight away. That's just not going to happen. But what we could see coming out of GUA is 2 or 3 rams, which adds in a lot of damage over time. He has definitely got the wood for that, so backs off for the time being. I like that he's prioritizing things like this as well, taking away the Madrasa in case there's another tech switch coming out of Beasty. Just denies him entirely. These raids on the flanks are at least going to come to an end. Beasty starts to warm himself in. Can I just say how marvelous of a game this has been? The attempt to recover and the work that Beasty's put in to get here. The scrappy, messy, looked like it was already over. 9 out of 10 players would have called GG 20-minute scenario in this game. And now we're here. Still with a big lead for GUA, but the game is closer than it's ever been. Military is still a mile apart, but the eco, that's the gap closer. Culverins and Mangonels here to make sure that there's no ram shenanigans coming out from GUA. GUA still doesn't have that second wave here, just distracted on the flanks time and time again. He needs to condense this down to a sole committed fight. That's how he wins, and I think he might have just done it here. Beasty down to 22 military, lacking sufficient eco to replace fast. The best he can do is queue up the spears. But that means you're still going to be hard countered by the hand cannoneers, by these camel archers. This is a difficult one, folks. Another raid hits on the backside. Looks like the walls didn't do enough. He just walked around. Oh, no. Well, the good news is Beasty doesn't have much eco to kill. It's mostly condensed underneath the castle now. Villagers are going to shift out again because they're in a desperate rush to get anything they can. Needs every bit of eco he can get. I mean, right now, the biggest issue I do see with Beasty, he needs more production buildings, and yeah, he agrees. Immediately pumps out about 10 Raxes here. Just can't get the troops together quick enough. Burns now coming in. Now, keep in mind, the reason we're not seeing any Rams is due to the fact that there is a Culverin, 2 Culverins, in fact, on the other side. So if you build Rams, they're just going to die. Instead, it's going to be a slow torch down. And it may be slow, but really, if you're GUA, what is the rush here? Right? Like, you can take this long to burn this down. You have military mass advantage. You know Beasty's not going to recover quickly. Beasty's now only getting the Elite Spearman upgrade. He still doesn't have that much unit flex compared to what GUA has on offer. That's Wisdom down to half HP. Now, keep in mind, the reason why Beasty's jumping this right here is if the House of Wisdom goes down, the firearm is going to be gone. That means the TC will die in a matter of a few seconds, it feels like. So instead, commits to a fight again. Culverin does get exposed on the flank. Horsemen are going to wrap in, and one more stab needed will get rid of it. So anti-siege gone, Beasty out of military, and this is done. There is no way back from this. This is the GG dive. Sure, he still needs to go back and finish off the House of Wisdom, but we're now talking about a 6 military X advantage for GUA. Those numbers you just simply can't overcome. Castle now also just being torched down. It's not a fast process. It's a little bit ugly, but he doesn't need it to be clean. GUA has had a fun but scrappy mid-game here, resulting And the power of the Abbasids late game shining through. I mean, really, it did come down to that, folks. The 2TC plan, the Eco Wing boosters in that hyper late game scenario showing you why the Abbasids have a higher ceiling. And the coolest detail of all, the way GUA done this. Hanging behind in Castle Age for a long time and showing you that even an age behind, it's still easy to win out in games.